Welcome back. We're in Ableton today looking at Addictive Trigger and how to use it with custom samples outside of the factory presets. I also have a quick tip at the end of the video using a drum box or any external MIDI device. Once you're loaded up in your DAW with the drum tracks you want to replace, you want to make a new MIDI or instrument track for the sounds you want to work with, and then you want to grab the instance of Addictive Trigger from your plugin library and put it on the original track. Here we can jump into the front panel, and there's a couple of things we want to check first. First of all, make sure that the instrument is correct for the track you're replicating, and you can set the range of velocity values that Trigger will write in this window here. I'm going to limit my kick drum to be no quieter than 30 and no louder than 99, and you want to press this Super Start button and reset your timeline in your DAW and press play. And what Trigger's done is it's analysed the volumes coming in from this kick track, and it's worked out a threshold from which to work the velocity data from. So once it's done this, we can reset the playhead again and press play all the way through to generate a clean MIDI file. I'm going to turn the loop off so that it doesn't re-trigger and cause any issues. So once we have that, you can see here it's populated a MIDI file with all the velocity on it, and we can simply click and drag this into our timeline. Ableton will ask me if I want to import the tempo and time signature. I'll click yes on that one, and you just want to bring it back to where you started. I find this easy to do from 1, but just make a note whichever bar you start playing from and it should correlate. And as you can hear now, we can turn off the original kick, and I've just got a kick sample here that we should hear in place. Now as you can see here, this note doesn't exist on the original recording. What it's done is it's generated a hit because it goes from no velocity to a velocity, so we can simply go into the MIDI file here and delete that note, and now this should be correct. And we can bring in the original kick alongside. So up until this point, it's all fairly standard drum reinforcement stuff. Addictive Trigger does come with its own samples, but they're fairly limited in my experience. And if you have, as a producer, if you have kick samples that you use in a lot of productions, this is a really handy way to get outside of the Addictive ecosystem. Process is exactly the same for the snare drum. I've gone ahead and done the snare already off camera. We can listen to the snare here. I've got this sample loaded up, and as we can hear with it, I can take the original snare out, and the original snare, and both together. So this is a handy trick for drums that aren't cutting it in a mix. You can basically stop at this point if you're just looking for a drum reinforcement tutorial. But the next step here is to bring up a drum box. I've got the D16's Drummerton, which is a 909 emulation, and we can bring these MIDI files down onto the track, and we can go into this MIDI file and select the notes here and copy them in to the kick drum file. And I'll just make these a little bit smaller. Here we go. Now, you want to make sure when you're doing any MIDI editing that things line up as they should do, because sometimes they can shift around a little bit depending on where things are copy and pasted. I tend to use a dummy note here. This is a really handy trick because when you do actually copy things in, you can find something that's on the beat and use it as a reference, and then all of these other ones that are playing around the beat will line up perfectly. You can turn this MIDI note off or just delete it afterwards, and you should end up with a drum box part that will play along with the overheads, which I have here. Which you can also layer in with the originals. Or you can bring everything in and have a completely layered sound. Now, this last step here, because you essentially have created a MIDI version of your drums, you can obviously send this out to a MIDI device. Obviously it's going to give me, at the moment it's giving me an audio out because I have the drum box on, but here you can see now that I've just got a standard MIDI track with my combined kick and snare on it. This is handy if you're using outboard equipment and you want to reinforce things or bring things in from outside using an audio source as your triggers. I hope this has been helpful to everyone, and please like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and I'll see you in the next video.